Super. So as we go along, feel free to ask questions, to type questions in the chat feature. I'll try and leave some time at the end so that we can have a conversation. I can ask any questions that you might have. My name is Ben. I'm from the UK, but I currently live in Albania, a small country in the Balkans in Europe, and I've been here for the last 3 and a bit years. Um, my background is working in children's services, and now for the last, I think I've been involved in different ways for 15 years in anti-human trafficking, anti-sex trafficking. Uh, I'm accredited in solution focused with the UK Association of Solution Focused Practice, and it's a passion of mine. So I like to bring it into whatever work I'm doing, and that includes the human trafficking side of things as well. It's a little bit about me. So the plan for today is to introduce you guys to a fairly new solution focused project that works with male purchasers of sex. So for a long time, we've worked with female survivors of human trafficking and sex trafficking, and we've used solution focused conversations as part of that work. But at some point along the way, we realized that to really have a greater impact on human trafficking, we also needed to address the demand. And I'll talk about that a little bit later, but that means we also needed to find ways of working with and engaging with men. So that's what this workshop is really about, how solution focused has allowed us to start doing that. I'm going to go through a little bit of background, a little bit of statistics and theory, and then I've got a real client session to show you. So very kindly, one of the men that we've been working with allowed me to record one of our sessions together, and he's happy for me to show it to you guys today. I will pause the recording when I show that because he's happy for me to use it as part of this and show it to you, but he doesn't want copies of it going around on the internet around the world. So if everybody could just agree to not take any photos of that when I show it, not take any videos of it, that'd be really good. All right. Cool. Thank you so much. So let me grab some slides to start off with. Okay. So the projects that I'm in charge of is called Flint. I'm also the co-founder of a solution-focused organization called Solution Focused Possibilities in the UK, along with a chap called Greg Oberbeck. We deliver training and counselling and solution focused, mostly in the social services sector. That's my background. This is the Azalea team. Okay, that's us. You see me hiding in the background. Like I mentioned briefly, I've just seen a question in the chat as well around what does sex buyers mean. I'll come on to that, but I'm just using it as a term really for men who have been purchasing sex, physically purchasing sex on the street or in brothels. Okay? So I'm not talking about pornography, for example. I'm talking about men who have physically been out onto the street or into brothels to purchase sex. All right. Thank you for the question. Keep sending questions if you've got them, and I'll get around to them. So Azalea as a charity has for the last 18 years worked with survivors of human trafficking and sex trafficking. I was involved in that myself for about 8 years. So I would be doing outreach on the streets. We would assist the police when they were doing raids of brothels. And we provided a drop-in and a recovery centre for women who had survived sex trafficking, and we still do. So I think over the last year, I think we worked with around 170 women, and that work is based in a city called Luton in the UK, which has an airport, which is partly why traffic flows through it. So that's us. That's the team. And like I said, we have various programs in Azalea. We do outreach on the street. So we have this outreach van, which you can see there, which is a converted van that's got a kitchen in it and it's got a little living room. Thank you, Erica, for your comment as well. And we basically, what we do is we go out onto the streets where we know, women are, there's different terminology. Okay, some people would say working in prostitution, other people would say being sexually exploited, but women out on the streets and men accessing them. And we're there to build relationship, to provide practical support, emotional support, signpost to services, build trust, and we're there to help women to slowly, if they want to slowly move away from that exploitation that they're facing. So we don't. You can see that there's no markings on the outside of the van. There's no logo. There's nothing identifiable. But the women know who we are. Okay, over time they get to know who we are, and if they want help, they approach the van and they ask us for help. That's what we do. We have that safe space inside that you can see a bit there in the photo, where they can come and they can decompress and they can talk and they can offload what's worrying them. We then move into our drop-in center, which again you can see some photos there. So once we've built sufficient trust with the women, or perhaps we've got to know them in a more dramatic way because they've been part of like I say, a police raid on a brothel or something like that, then we'll introduce them to our drop-in center. So it's designed to be a safe, like homely space where they can relax. Sometimes they just, come into sleep because it's the only sort of safe space that they know of, that they have. It's the only space where they feel safe enough to actually close their eyes and go to sleep for a while. They can get hot meals. We have a whole, huge team of volunteers that bake and cook freshly cooked meals for them every week. The ladies can get showers and clean clothes, and there's a recovery program that involves art therapy and pottery and barista training, all sorts going on. And then after a while, people started to get frustrated. People started to get disillusioned, disempowered, because they would spend ages, sometimes years, building relationships, supporting a woman to exit trafficking and exploitation, which is a really hard thing to do. It's quite a dangerous thing to do for the women, and it often means moving to a new place, cutting ties with people that they know. And, we were spending years helping some of these women to exit exploitation, only for 2 weeks later, another woman, another girl to take their place on the street or in the brothel. Right? So it wasn't ending the cycle was continuing. And so we realized that if we really want to address this cycle of exploitation, then we're going to have to address the demand side. Okay, we're going to have to work with the men who fuel the demand for sexual exploitation and trafficking. And that means working with the men who are going out and purchasing sex. Okay. If you look at there isn't loads, but if you look at some of the research and the surveys that have been done with men, there's not a nice, neat kind of couple of boxes where there's a group of men who are going out and buying sex with trafficked women, and there's a group of men who are going out and buying sex with women that they know for 100% certainty they're there by their own choice. Okay, there's a lot of in the interviews, what you hear the men saying, quite a lot of the men saying, is that when they got to a brothel or when they got to the street where they were buying sex, they might have had doubts that the woman was there by choice. They might have had inclinations that actually there was some coercion or exploitation at play. Maybe they saw a woman with bruises or cigarette burns or looking upset, but continued with the purchase anyway. Okay, because that desire to do so was so strong. And you're probably familiar with this quote from Desmond Tutu. So that there comes a point where we need to stop just pulling people out of the river. We need to go upstream and find out why they're falling in. This is all part of the thinking of why we started to work with men. Our vision is a really big vision. Um, yeah, you're please lend us your thoughts because it's quite a big task to take on. But we want to end the demand for sex trafficking. That's our big vision. And our mission statement to go alongside that to support men who struggle with strong temptations to stop their purchase of sex. The strong temptations phrase came from some of the men that we're working with themselves. We played around with lots of different terminology. There was a lot of debate around the word addiction, for example, and whether calling it a sex addiction was appropriate or not. But in the end, the men themselves said we would describe it as a strong temptation. And so that's what we went for. So we're using that language. So support men who struggle with strong temptation to stop their purchase of sex. Okay, I've got a little quiz for you guys. So if you want to grab a pen and paper or your phone, see how well you do on this. I've got 7 questions for you. Give you just a moment to grab something to write on. Unfortunately, I don't have a prize other than just the pride of knowing that you did well. So here we go. Question 1. Some of these stats, obviously, our project is based in the UK, so some of these stats are related to Britain, to the UK, but hopefully still interesting for you. So, according to research, what percentage of men in Britain, men in the UK, have purchased sex in their lifetime? Is it A, 11%, B, 15.2%, or C, 3.6%? Okay. Jaywin's putting their answers in the chat. It's another way you can do it. Oh, Kidge Burns has just joined us as well. Welcome, Kidge. Kidge, it's almost like you knew we were just starting a quiz and you thought, I love quizzes, I want to join us. Okay, so yeah, question 1. What percentage of men in Britain have purchased sex in their lifetime? I'll reveal the answers at the end. We'll go through all the questions, then I'll reveal. Okay. Question 2. What percentage of female trafficking victims worldwide are trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation? Okay. So obviously there's lots of different forms of trafficking. It can be labor, for example. But what percentage are trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation? Is it A, 39%, B, 66%, or C, 48%? Okay, so again, scribble down your answer, put it in the chat if you want to. Okay, question 3. So there was a study in 2009 with 103 sex buyers. And in this study, they asked the sex buyers to describe their feelings after the act of purchasing sex. What percentage of the words used were negative feelings like guilt and remorse and regret? So 103 sex buyers were asked to describe their feelings after the act of purchasing sex. What percentage of the words they used were negative feelings? Keep it moving. Question 4. According to a 2005 population study, which group of UK men contains the highest proportion of sex buyers? And again, when we say sex buyers, we're talking about men who have physically purchased sex on the street in brothels, as opposed to men using pornography, for example. So, which is the highest proportion of sex buyers? Is it A, men who live in London, B, men who had been previously married, or C, men aged between 25 and 34? Oh, you're doing well. Here we go. Question five. Five of seven. So, in 2016, Operation Greengrass convicted four members of an organised crime group involved in sexually exploiting Romanian women in the UK. How many websites did they set up to advertise to sex buyers? Was it 17, 29, or 58?
50.
Yeah. Yeah.
Guess
So,
what?
how many websites did they set up to advertise to men? Okay. Question six, an ultimate question. According to our own anonymous survey, so we did a survey with 493 men anonymously in our local area. What was the number one reason given for why men purchase sex? Is it A, a search for intimacy, B, loneliness, or C, to relieve stress? And the last one, last question. So at
Okay.
any given moment, how many victims of sex trafficking worldwide are there estimated to be? So at any given moment in the world, how many victims of sex trafficking are there estimated to be? A, 3.2 million, B, 2.6, or C, 4.8. Okay. So, moment of truth. Let's see the answers. Also, see how good or not my PowerPoint skills are. Let's see if the correct answers come up. So, question one: What, according to research, what percentage of men in Britain have purchased sex in their lifetime? What did people think? Shout out, or again, just chuck it in the chat. Was it A, B, or C? 11%, 15, or 3.6?
B.
Got a B. A couple of people saying A in the chat.
I'll go B.
Yeah. So the answer is A.
Hmm.
Oh, it's a loud clap. Okay, so 11%, 2.75 million. Okay, so 11% of men in Britain have purchased sex in their lifetime. Question two: What percentage of female trafficking victims are trafficked for the purpose of exploitation, sexual exploitation? Any guesses?
B, 66.
A.
B, A. Let's have a look.
Okay, I'll go C.
B. There you go. Okay, B, 66% of female trafficking victims are trafficked for the purpose of sexual exploitation. This one. So, what percentage of the words used by men were negative feelings after they'd purchased sex? Was it 81%, 61, or 41%?
I'll go B.
B, 61%, we think.
B2. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. This one is actually, from memory, I think it's C, 41. Yeah.
Oh.
Okay. Yeah. So, God, that clapping sound is going to get annoying by the end of this. I'll have to change that for next time. There you go. Yeah, so 41%, okay, of the words used after the act of purchasing sex were negative, like guilt and remorse, regret.
Hmm.
Yeah, maybe that surprised one or two people, but that's the findings from that one.
Hmm.
Okay. Now, which group in the UK do we think contains the highest proportion of sex buyers? Men who live in the capital city, men who have been previously married, or those aged between 25 and 34? What do people think?
C.
I thought B.
I thought C.
Mhm.
Okay, so maybe B, maybe C. Um, this was a horrible question for me to put in here because they're actually the top. They're actually the top three categories. Okay,
Hmm.
in the UK. All right. Um, B B is the top. Okay, so men who have been through divorce are the highest proportion. But then men who live in London and men aged between 25 and 34 are the next two. highest categories.
Mm.
So if a man lives in London, if they've been through a divorce, and if they're aged between 25 and 34, then they are in the most
Oh.
vulnerable category of men for this.
Mm.
Yeah. Okay.
Mm.
The Operation Greengrass, this is like, how many websites did this criminal gang set up to advertise to men? What do we think?
C, 58.
Yeah. C58. Okay. A lot of them.
Mm.
Yeah. So maybe you guys, some of you are probably aware or have heard of the amount of, money that's involved in sex trafficking, human trafficking. This is big business, and there's a lot of resources behind it, right? So 58 websites set up to advertise to sex buyers. Number one reason given for why men purchase sex: search for intimacy, loneliness, or to relieve stress.
All of the above.
Yeah, very good. I think that was Elena. That was yeah, again, they are the top three reasons given. Okay, so it's another difficult question for you. The number one was was search for intimacy. That was the number one reason. But all
Mm.
three were the top three. Okay. And then we've got question 7. At any given moment, how many victims of sex trafficking are there estimated to be? So worldwide, how many do we think? A, B, or C?
C.
C. Here we go. Well done. So that's the end of the clapping, which is good, and the end of the quiz. How many? Did anyone get 7 out of 7? No, 2. Oh, okay, Jevon got 5 out of 7. Anyone else get 5 out of 7? That's pretty good. Well, well done. Well done for those who got that much. Um, I'm just gonna keep moving on for time's sake, but I will leave some space at the end for questions, and also if you want to contact me, I'm happy to get back in touch. But if there's anything in this data that surprised you or you want to ask more about, do note it down, and I'll be really happy to have a follow-up conversation with you. Okay. So what does Flint do? This project that I run, we offer a confidential and non-judgmental mentoring service for men who have been purchasing sex but no longer wish to do so. Okay. And certainly in the UK, we couldn't find anyone else doing this. Okay. There are a couple of charities that help men with pornography, men who feel that their pornography use has become addictive, that will help them with that. And there is a program in London for men who have been caught by the police soliciting and curb crawling and buying sex. Okay, and it's almost like a speed awareness course where they get sent for a day to be educated. But we're the only ones who are providing this sort of self referral, like it's open to anyone, and you can choose to come. Okay, so nobody's sending the men that we work with. It's free of charge, and they are opting in. So it's men who have said, this is something that I want to change. And how does solution focus shape our mentoring? I mean, it's obviously, if you're here, you probably know that solution focused is a pretty radical approach. And Jamie, I've noted your question. I'll come back to that at the end. I'll make sure I answer it. So in terms of solution focused, it gives us a change in our focus with men, right? So put simply, when men come to work with us, they're expecting us to ask them about their sex buying. They're expecting us to ask them about these areas of their life that they've probably kept hidden and secret for many years. Right? It's a very uncomfortable conversation for them to have, at least some of the time. It can be quite stressful for the men the sort of first time they contact us and ask for a session, and they're expecting us to ask about their sex buying behavior. But because we're working in a solution focused way, we of course start by asking them about their desired outcomes, their hopes for the future. The men that we've been working with, the answers they give are things like they want to repair their relationships. Okay, they want to be the best father they can be. They want to build their character, develop greater self-control, that sort of thing. Okay. Solution focused also gives us a difference in the way that the men are perceived by our volunteers. Okay, so most of our team is voluntary, and solution focus allows them to start to see these men as almost like an ally in the fight against human trafficking. Okay, I've started to come to think of these men as possibly the greatest single threat to human trafficking that the world has ever seen. Right? Because if men who have been purchasing sex start to turn around and put their hand up and say, I don't want to do this anymore, and actually I can't bear the thought that somebody might be being exploited or harmed as a result of this, then that's a significant threat to the world of sex trafficking and human trafficking. So we're starting to not only view these men as capable of change in their own lives, but also of capable of generating broader societal change as well. And solution focused also allows us to achieve some meaningful progress, despite it being a highly complex issue. So we can get going, we can get moving on the things like being the best dad they can possibly be, developing greater self-control without having to assess or cure or diagnose something complicated.
Mm.
And our project is very small. I just want to be honest and transparent about that. It's small thus far, but I believe it can grow. So we've had 25 self-referrals, right? 25 men that have put their hand up and said, we'd like some help with this. But that's, 25 really significant stories. And for me, it's a proof of concept. For me, it's a proof that if confidential and non-judgmental support is made available for men, then there are men out there who will access it. Okay. Like I say, our project is almost entirely voluntary. Our resources are limited, but I think we've shown that this can work, that men will take up the offer if it's made to them. We track well-being using the Warwick Edinburgh Mental Wellbeing Scale, and at the moment 73% are showing an increase in their well-being. And we asked the men to report on their frequency of sex buying as well. 100% are reporting a reduction, and 60% say they've stopped completely. Okay, so that is where we're at thus far. Yeah, and in terms of, just want to touch on Jaywin's question in the chat. Said, how do these groups operate? What do they do? How can we notice or observe so we can prevent this from happening? I think one of the common practices in the UK is different in every context, of course. But one of the growing trends at the moment in the UK is almost sort of pop-up brothels using things like Airbnb, okay, and using flats, temporary residences. And the thing that we ask communities to look out for is things like if there's lots of women, men coming in and out of a building that you haven't noticed before, if there's lots of cars pulling up outside that building, if you notice disturbances like that, then they're worth, this is information that is worth passing on to the authorities, to the police, because it might help them build a larger picture of what's going on. And in terms of the men we're working with, we advertise in like everyday places, right? We advertise in sports clubs, football clubs and rugby clubs and universities, and mosques and churches, because these men are coming from their everyday regular blokes, who, if they, who might have been carrying this as a secret for 20 years, they might have been hiding this for 20 years or more. So we just need to make it visible that there's help and there's support available. One of the things we've done is started putting posters up in men's toilets, right? Just saying, hey, we know that around 11% of men in the UK have had some experience of this, might be struggling with it. If that's you, we're here to help. Right. Confidential, non-judgmental. Okay. What I'd like to do now is show you a real example of this. I'm just going to play maybe 6 or 7 minutes of a session so you can get an idea. Just a reminder, please don't take any photos or videos of this. I've got permission to show you the recording, but not to make copies of it, okay? I'm also going to stop the recording on here. Okay. So conscious we haven't got very long, and there might be questions that people want to answer, and some people might want to view the rest of that session or the whole thing to get some ideas. So again, just to say, you're very welcome to contact me after this, and I love talking about and sharing this stuff. So if you want to keep the conversation going, we can. Here's our poster, right, in case anyone wants to have a look at more information. The website is azalea.org.uk/Flint. I'll put that in the chat for you as well. There you go. And in answer to what my email is, there you go. All right, if you can see that slide. So ben@azalea.org.uk.
Could you go back one slide? I couldn't click on the link fast enough. I'm sorry.
That's all right. There we go.
Thank you.
It's all right. Okay, and I've got I've got another question in the chat. Are all the volunteers men? You might think so, but the answer to that is no. So we have at the moment we have a team of 7 volunteers, and 2 of them are female. The organisation has had a long history of having a mixed gender volunteer team on both the women's work and the men's work. So for 8 years, I was serving in the women's side of the work, so helping with the outreach and the drop-in, and I was part of. We're always sensible with ratios and things. With the women's work, there's always 2 female volunteers and 1 male volunteer. But the thinking behind that is that having sort of healthier relationships and examples and interactions with male volunteers can be part of the healing journey for the survivors of trafficking, for the women. So sometimes it would be simple things like just serving them a coffee, right? But just small things to have healthier interactions. And the same with the men's work. We really wanted a mixed gender team, and we've been lucky to get 2 really good female volunteers join us. Who have embraced and are using the solution-focused approach. So feel free to fire any other questions over in the last few minutes. You can type them in the chat or unmute yourself and shout out.
It's not a question, but more an appreciation that I've never heard that someone is dealing with this problem from the end of the users. And this is really the solution, I think, and it's good to see that it's happening somewhere.
Yeah, thank you.
As I work as a therapist, and usually see exploited end.
Yeah, exactly. And I think it's fair to say that the majority of NGOs and charities that work in the trafficking space are focused on the survivors and the victims rather than addressing the demand side. You know, and the other thing is solution focused is so wonderful in this space because where programs and interventions do exist for working with men, it tends to be about education. It has this feeling of we need to educate, we need to change these men. Whereas solution focus comes along and says they're already an expert. They're already an expert on their own life. They're already capable of change. They already have different hopes and aspirations for the future. Yeah, so it's a really beautiful way of working with the men in that way.
Indeed, it was, and the man in the video was quite self-reflective and aware. So, kind of positive surprise for me.
Yeah. I asked him at the end of the video if there's anything he's heard himself say during the session that he was pleased to notice. And his final reflection is, I'm paraphrasing, but something along the lines of, now that I'm talking about it, I've realized that this is a choice and I just need to make the right choice, every day, every hour. So, yeah. And we believe, from a solution focused perspective, we believe that if he wants to go and make that choice, then he is capable of doing it. He's capable of choosing a direction.
Thank you for doing that.
Yes, thank you, Ben. That was very informative. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are these men you are working with, are they having sex addiction or also regular men? So,
yeah, it's the sex addiction phrase has been an interesting one. Some of the men we're working with would describe themselves as having an addiction, and some wouldn't. Like I said, we've chosen to use the terminology strong temptations because in our experience, that's a term that's acceptable to all the men that we're working with. We do also use, there's something called the pathos or pathos sexual addiction screening tool, which we do ask the men to fill out as well. And that would indicate that the majority of them might have an addiction. The wording is a little bit loose with that, but it says there's basically 6 questions, and if they answer yes to 3 or more, then they have a possibility of having an addiction. And the majority of the men we work with fall in that category. Yeah. Okay. And then Rachel said, please pass on our appreciation to the client. I definitely will do. Yeah, for sure. Yeah. And a group has formed. Most of our work is one-to-one, but 4 of the men that we've been working with said that they would like to start encouraging and supporting one another. So they asked for a group to be formed, and 4 of them meet once a month to do that. Yeah.
It's great when your work is multiplying that way.
It is indeed. Okay. Well, thank you so much, everybody. Please do email me, get in touch if you would like more information. And thank you so much for coming along. I think there are plenty more workshops to go along to. I'll pop the link for the schedule in the chat in case you want to go and look again at what else is available on SF24.
Thank you.
Okay. All right. Thank you, everyone. Bye for now.
Thank you.
Thank you. Goodbye.
thank you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Ben.